Weekly, GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Need an answer to your question. John, he'll have a suggestion. He's a fountain of all knowledge. I think he might have gone to GarageBand College. What he doesn't know, we'll try and find out. So join the chat and give him a shout. Pete John, GarageBand Weekly.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly. There I am. Hello, welcome to the show. On this week's show, we're talking all about EQ, equalization, equalizers, graphic EQs, visual EQs, parametric EQs, bass, treble, mids, you name it, we're going to talk about it. We're going to try and break it down into some simple terms to help you get the best EQ results and get the best music, because that's what we're here for here on Studio Live today. We've got some news and notes, we've got some rants, we're going to look at some plugins and apps and tips and all the rest of it, as well as a bucket of fish. If you are here live, hello. If you have questions, all you need to do is put a big chungus Q in front of your comment, and I'll see that and I'll tag it as a question. Rena, I've already tagged your question. We'll look at that later in the Q&A section. We'll jump into the news and notes in just a jiffy, but we've got some folks who are here on the live show. If you want to catch the show live, we do it every week at 3 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. No, the other way around. Switch that, reverse it, at 11 p.m. UTC, as well as 10 a.m. in Australia. And that is on a Tuesday morning or a Monday evening, depending where you are in the world. Hello to folks who are here live. G'day, Mark Bro. Hello, Thomas Christ. G'day, Folk Punk. Tommy Jack Music, a great GarageBand creator in his own right. Joe and Barry Glenn. Hello to, who have I missed? Beats by Luke. G'day to you. Folk Punk. Hello to you. Thank you for being here. I think I saw the Mix Club. Hoi hoi. Hope you're doing well, my friend, Mix Club. And who was it that said, yeah, Folk Punk said, I need to learn rather than just moving things randomly to see what happens. Don't underestimate the value and the power of moving things around to see what happens. It's a very viable tactic and technique when it comes to music, because too often we take the advice of people that say, do exactly this, and it's never the right thing. In my humble opinion. Everything today will be my opinion, my experience and my opinion. I decided to start using that at the start of as many sentences as possible, is to use the terms in my experience and in my opinion, because that's all I got. All I got is my own experience and my own opinion. I don't have the experience or opinions of others. If you would like to support the channel and find out a whole lot more about GarageBand, did I not say hello to Jade Star? Hello, Jade Star. Hello, Fat Panda Cat. We are brought to you today by the GarageBand FAQ. If you would like to jump on over to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand, you can check it out there. We've got my $10 course there that I know many of you have already purchased. It's just $10. It's 5 hours of curated content. If you are getting started in GarageBand, it's a good place to start. Even Russ8889 did the course and found it useful. We've got all the playlists there of all of the different videos here on the channel, as well as the communities that you can join, and then questions and answers of everything, including EQ. So if you're already curious about EQ, I go through the EQ in GarageBand there, but we're going to do it in a little bit more depth here today. So that's what is going to be on the show here today. Let's dive in to the news and notes for the week, shall we? So we don't have a whole lot here. By the way, all this is down in the description. So any links I mention, anything relevant I mention is down in the description. The big news around the YouTube world, and I guess it's relevant to GarageBand. I'm going to sneak it in here because I know many of you are GarageBand creators. You share your own music. Some of you have monetized channels or your own music channel, your own official artist channel on YouTube, or you may be aspiring to one day be monetized on YouTube. Well, YouTube have just changed their terms of service, which has some good and some bad. Like most things in life, there's some pros and there's some cons. The pros, let's start with that. They have added Shorts monetization. So if you didn't know before, Shorts, so things that popped up as YouTube Shorts, if they were viewed in what was called the Shorts shelf, they were not monetized unless you were part of the Shorts Creator Fund, which you had to basically have hundreds and thousands, if not millions of views on your shorts. So for your average Joes and Jades and Petes, we weren't getting monetized on our shorts because they weren't part of the YouTube Partner Program. That is being changed. So I've just accepted my terms because I'm beholden to the gods of Alphabet. So I have accepted the terms, and it means that my shorts from the 1st of February will start to be monetized, meaning if someone actually plays a short, I'll be getting 55% of any advertising revenue on those shorts. Now, shorts advertising is going to be brand new. It's probably going to be a lot less than what you do on a regular video because people aren't going to watch a 30-second ad between 15-second shorts. So we'll see how that plays out. Watch this space. I'll let you know. I'm usually pretty transparent. If you want the behind-the-scenes info, join the Patreon. As the patrons know, I tell them pretty much everything that goes on and how it all works. So that's sort of the good side. The not so good side is they've tweaked and changed a few different things behind the scenes, including, probably controversially, they have decided to go back and look. YouTube have always had, the reason I don't swear, I don't use a lot of profanity on this channel, is that YouTube have always had a thing that if you use a lot of swear words, so if you're swearing throughout an entire video, or particularly in the first 15 seconds, if there's a swear word, then that can flag that as not monetizable. And the reason for that is it's kind of logic that if there's an advertiser that wants to advertise on a YouTube channel, say you've released a song. Your song is about puppies and kittens. Well, any advertiser would probably be okay with that because you're like, puppies and kittens are awesome. And so, anyone from your masterclass through to your HelloFresh, through to your Kleenex toilet tissue are probably going to be okay. But if your song is F the C's, and that's all it does the whole way through, well then, yeah, the same Kleenex toilet tissue are probably not going to want like a nice little, their little Kleenex puppy. Do they have that in other countries? But the little dog with the toilet rolls or whatever it is, and then it goes into F the. So yeah, that's kind of where they're going with that. And look, that's always been in place, but they did something recently where they came out and said, yeah, we're going to go back. We're going to go back in time and we're going to start looking at these in the past, and we're potentially going to demonetize. And apparently it did happen. Didn't happen to any of my videos yet. Touch wood. The only time I really swear is on the happy hour, and that's when I'm playing Creep by Radiohead, and very rarely else, or maybe Tribute by Tenacious D. So we'll see how this comes out in the wash. About every year, there is some big, what they call an adpocalypse, where everyone loses their ever-loving mind. It happened first with the whole advertisers pulling out back in 2018. We then had the copper, which I think that was earlier. That was 2017, which was like the child online protection, where anyone that was putting videos out there for children couldn't monetize it. So we go through this regularly. What it all comes down to is that YouTube is owned by a company and they have advertisers, and the only way that I make any money through YouTube is if I have advertising on my videos. I don't have any control over that. I've built my house. My little Studio Live Today McMansion is built on rented land. So if I've got a problem with the landlord, guess what? I can complain, I can jump up and down, I can ask for them to lower my rent, but at the end of the day, they could just say, get out. Get off my land. So yeah, it's interesting, but as usual, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Where it hurts is old content. I've heard of people losing monetization on older videos. That can be hard. Yeah, and that's the thing. That apparently that's been happening, and I don't know, like sometimes it's we told you in the past and then you did it anyway, and then it was okay for a while and then we changed it. So it's I don't know, it's kind of hard. It's a hard thing, but again, as long as it's just horses for courses, isn't it? Because some advertisers wouldn't care. So if YouTube just paint everything with one brush, that's a bit different. Whereas there might be 10% of advertisers maybe completely okay with my F the song. Who knows? We'll see how we go. We'll keep going. Alrighty. Let's go. The only other thing I didn't really have any garage. It's been quiet. Let's be honest. It's January. It's the 17th of January here. There's not a whole lot going on around here. But there was something interesting that I thought. Oh, by the way, there's a really good video if you want to find out all about this stuff. Roberto Blake is a great creator, and he's got this one all about YouTube's new monetization rules, the YouTube Partner Program, and the new terms of service. So go and check out Roberto's video there. The other thing that I thought, I actually saw this on This Week in Tech, and I wonder, should I play it? Should I play this little bit of? We've been talking a lot about AI as it relates to AI voice and AI music and AI art, and creators are
11 labs.
Oh, we're already playing it. I'll stop that for now. Creators are in sort of two camps. Some are like, oh no, it's going to ruin the world, and people are going to be creating. People that are creators are going to be screwed by this, and other people are like, oh no, it's like the remix culture and the sampling culture. It's going to be fine. I kind of sit on the fence. Not surprisingly, I sit somewhere in the middle. But the actual voice synthesis is getting better and better. Yesterday on Your Music Live, Gregory O'Sullivan does amazing work. He did a cover song, and the voice synthesis used on that was amazing. People were like, this is AI? This is a robot? Yeah, it is. And 11 Labs are a company that are just sort of starting. I've joined the beta program. So if you go to 11labs.io, you can also join the beta program, and you can check it out as well. But they're doing some pretty amazing stuff, and I thought it's relevant, this one, because it's Steve Jobs. I don't know how I feel about this one, but they've basically created this video, a YouTube short, and I'll play a little snippet of it. It's linked down in the description. You can go play it, but this is kind of freaky deaky.
At 11 Labs, we believe in the power of technology to connect people and ideas.
I'm only going to play that much because they've probably, I don't know if they've got the balls to have put Content ID on that one, but yeah, so they're using voices. They're using voices of people. In this case, Steve Jobs, who's no longer with us, to create their own text. So stuff he's never said before. Because he said so many things, they can use his voice to make it say whatever they want. And again, because this is GarageBand Weekly, I thought that was an interesting one. But you can, of course, go and check out Gordon Ramsay, or perhaps my favorite, which is Snoop Dogg. Check out this one.
Yo, what's good, my peeps? It's y'all boy assistant coming at you with the scoop on voice cloning.
There you go. So Snoop Dogg talking about voice cloning. I'm not quite sure if he knows that that's going on, if he would approve of that. Snoop Dogg, I'm Snoop Dogg, and I approve this message. No. All right. Sorry. Ed Zielinski says, I think AI is a bit overhyped right now. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's too early to see what... AI is at the point that crypto was 10 years ago, where everyone's just thinking it's going to be the absolute greatest thing. It's going to change everything. And then everyone, like some people are going to get so heavily involved that when it inevitably doesn't deliver on as much as people think it will, everyone's going to get super bummed and disappointed. But yeah, this is uncanny, creepy. I know, it's a little bit creepy, isn't it? It's a little tiny bit creepy. Alrighty. It's as tacky as when they got Vincent Price to advertise Loo Cleaner. Yeah, look, it has the hallmarks of being super duper creep, doesn't it? A little bit. We'll see how we go. All right, yeah, but I like it because eventually I reckon I've said every single word. I would actually love to do this, and that's why I've sort of joined the beta program. I said to them, because they got a little spiel there, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to be all in on this. Like, I want to find this out. So then it'll probably ruin things because they'll steal my identity. Hello, Trevor Bear. G'day, James Antoine. Hello to anyone who I've missed who I haven't said g'day to. We're going to move on because we do have a lot to get to here today. If you do have any questions, as I mentioned before, we will do some Q&A. Just put a Q in front of your comment. In fact, we've only got one question that's come in so far, so why don't we answer that one and then dive headfirst into our feature topic, because we're gonna. Can you see behind me? No, they're out of shot, but my guitars are there. And yeah, we're going to be we're going to be recording some music, and then we're going to be using some EQ on it, because I thought, let's get something fresh to demonstrate EQ here today. So that'll be coming up in just a jiffy. Rena's got a question here. She says, hi Pete, pre-cast question. A few months ago, you did a show on free plugins, had Magic Dice, etc. One plugin allows you to vocal skip, like at the end of Universe by Coldplay BTS. Do you know which one? It was weird. Yeah. So... do you remember it? I can't remember which one it was. So Magic Dice and Magic Switch are the two. Wasn't Magic Switch? That just has the one thing. But what would it have been? Pete Johns. Let's just find the Magic Dice one. What would it have been? Jade Star will probably know because she's covered everything, but there's my videos on Magic Dice and Magic Switch. So you're basically looking for a vocal chopper, because you've got the GarageBand FX where you can use the skipper, like the you can use that one. So if you wanted to use GarageBand FX, you could do that, but perhaps there was actually I vaguely remember there being a free app that did something like that, but I can't find it, and I don't know what it is. So I'm going to revert that back to the live studio audience and see if anyone can remember or recommend a plugin. And if you haven't heard that song, Coldplay and BTS, I mean, yeah, I guess, come on, cash in, Coldplay. Coldplay are trying to make themselves relevant again. Let's just get part of BTS. Get the BTS army to like some, old Chris Martin and his boys. But yeah, I'm not sure what that would be, but someone out there probably knows it. All right. Okay. All right. So let's continue on. Sorry, I thought there was another part to that question, but there isn't there. So we'll go. It will hit the day-to-day artist over the big guys. What was that related to? The AI stuff. It will hit the day-to-day artist. So, yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Back on the AI stuff, and I mentioned it last week. I don't know if it's fair to even say this, but I think if I was a mediocre artist or a mediocre copywriter or a mediocre musician right now, I'd probably be more worried. If it was my bread and butter and I kind of knew I was phoning it in and I knew that AI could basically do what I can do, I'd probably, like if I was a box ticker. So for instance, AI articles are writing like the sports scores, like the box scores and this happened and then this person did this thing. Like they're being employed to write the stuff that like an entry-level person would write. I guess my only concern is that if you are an entry-level person, if you take away all the menial, like the easy tasks and easy things, how do you learn? How do you get from that novice to intermediate to advanced? Because you can't jump straight in to writing like deep, insightful political commentary. You kind of need to start by writing, Bob's Tyre Yard is having a tyre sale. All tyres must be 40% off. Like, if AI writes all of that, where does, like, Joey McRookie, when he's just come out of school, how does he get started in whatever field he happens to be in? I don't know. Poor Joey. Joey McRookie. What was the guy last time? We have different names every time. Last time we had Sarah Jessica Parker doing Darth Vader, which would have been weird. Should we grab some guitars? Yo! Sorry, for whatever reason, it's about 35 degrees here in Australia, and the internet is a little bit shaky. So we're going to probably have a few instances of dropping in and out like we're doing right now, where I'm going to go a little bit robotic, but we'll stick with it and we'll be able to get there. And probably playing music is probably going to be the worst possible idea because it's going to use a heap more bandwidth. But we will see how we go. We'll see. It's coming and going. It's just basically we've got terrible internet here in Australia. We've got something called the NBN, the National Broadband Network, and it keeps. It does okay, but who would have thought that, it would, in weather, in like hot weather in Australia, it's 35 degrees in the middle of January, and for whatever reason, the NBN's perfect overnight, and then it wakes up and the sun hits the cables, and it's like, melting. But we'll stick with it and give it a go. So, let's talk EQ, shall we? What I need to do is bring up my iPad here. Here's something I prepared earlier. And by the way, a funny anecdote before we jump into this. Hello, Ron Ward. Funny thing, I was playing this guitar, my Epiphone Les Paul, and sort of just doing a little bit of practice before the show and recording a few little ditties in. And my daughter, she's sitting on the bed behind me, and she's like, "I didn't know you still played electric guitar." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, yeah, you're right." So my daughter obviously hadn't seen me playing electric guitar for a very long time. And then I'm just getting set up about half an hour ago, and my wife walks in and she sort of looks over my shoulder. She's like, "When was the last time you played electric guitar?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Clearly I'm long overdue for playing a little bit of electric guitar." So I got called out by my entire family on the fact that I'm an old man and I tend to only play acoustic guitar these days. But Here's what we've got. I've got an idea for a punk song at the moment, and it's just called Punk Song Idea. So this is what we're going to be using here to just do a little bit of EQ. But I thought I'd record, because I've recorded in the ideas here, but I thought I would just do a little bit of recording again, just to get this sounding exactly as I want it to. But let's see what it sounds like at the moment here. Right, so that is what we've got here. What I thought I would do is I'll mute out these, and we'll go back and I'll re-record these just to get it sounding a little bit like I want it to sound. So here's what we've done so far is I've come in here, I've set the key signature to G major. We are in 4/4 time here, and the tempo is a cracking pace of 160. Because I wanted it to be super fast, because it's going to be a punk song. I've then grabbed Kyle, and I found this cool Kyle rhythm here that sounds like this. And I just thought, this is going to work for this song. So what I've done is I've put 2 bars here at the start, just to lead in, and then we're going to play. And then we're going to go and start recording. So what I wanted to do is record a rhythm guitar. So a rhythm guitar doing some chugga-chugga chords. So what I chose here, as you saw here, was the power chord. But I'll show you how I set up, because I haven't shown any recording here for a while. So if you're new to GarageBand and you want to record, we'll hit the plus button, and we'll go to the guitar amp simulator. Because when I'm doing stuff like this, I normally just use the GarageBand built-in guitar amps, because they're actually pretty darn good. The one that I like to use here for power chords is, not surprisingly, from the Tone Collection, the power chord. So we're going to go into that one, and all we need to do now is come in here to my inputs. Now I'm using the Steinberg UR22C as my audio interface, which has 2 inputs. I have my mic in input 1, and I have my guitar in input 2. So we're going to choose input 2 on this one. We're going to turn the monitoring on, and we should be ready to rock and roll, or to punk and junk. Yeah, let's go with that. So what I'm going to do is jump out of here, and let's record this in, because again, this was like a test run, and I thought, we'll do it live. We'll do it live, and we'll record it here on the show. So let's turn this up, hit the record button here, and play in a little bit of punk rock. Some lyrics. Da 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 da. All right, a little bit of a riff and a ditty going on there. So we'll use that as the basis here, because it went a little bit longer in the last version, as you see up there. I played around with some lead parts, I played around with some bass, but I wanted something that was just, round about that. Around about 50 bars that we can play around with here. Remember, 50 bars at 160 BPM is not actually that many bars. There you go. Makes up vocal melody on the fly. Yeah, look, it was already in my head, Ron. I'm not going to take too much credit for that. But we will record some vocals as well, because I wanted to get some guitars, drums, vocals, and bass in here so that we can play around with EQ and use it on something fresh and new and relevant. So that's what we're going with here. So let's put the guitar to one side. Now turn off your monitoring before you unplug. I usually forget to do that, so I'm unplugging the Les Paul. We're going to grab the bass guitar and do a bit of a bass riff on this one. I have the bass. The power of the bass. So we'll plug this sucker in. Where's the end of my cord? There it is. By the way, these Ernie ball cables, I think I have them over on the gear guide. These things are great. They've got, I'll just come over here for a sec. They're the ones with the L shape at the end there, but they're really good. Like, I've found these to be the best quality I've found. They're about 25, 30 bucks each, and you can get them in different sizes, but they've got these excellent, really strong ends on them. So compared to the plasticky ones, these are great. Never come out, never come loose. And now as I say that, it's probably going to do exactly all those things. So let's jump back over here to the iPad. Let's hit the plus button and let's grab this time a bass amp. So we'll hit the bass amp here and we'll jump in here. I want a bit of a distorted amp. I reckon I want something like the Vintage Grit here, which is a nice little amp. Again, we'll go to input 2. We will jump out here. We will turn on the monitoring and we should we're good to go with a bass. And yes, I do play bass with a pick. It's punk. You can get away with playing bass with a pick. I'm just terrible. I can't slap. Right? And I'm not very good with my fingers don't have the dexterity on my right hand. Hang on. The fingers on my right hand don't have the dexterity for that. Oh, God. All right, let's come out of here. Now, this time I'm going to use a technique because I want to sort of follow along with my original guitar there. I'm going to use a technique. I know I've showed it before, but every time I show it, people go, wow, I didn't know that. So pay attention if you're newer to GarageBand. But let's hit the plus button here. Let's hit the voice recorder, the audio recorder button here, and just set up a dummy track here. Doesn't matter. It doesn't need anything on. As long as it's on channel 1, we can use this as our dummy track. So we can come in here and now we can turn on both tracks. So now when we record our bass, it'll stay on this screen. You'll actually be able to see where your drummer is and where your guitar is because you can record on both of these. We're only monitoring the bass here. And in fact, we'll turn the bass up so I can... All right. So what I want to do is for the first bit, I'm just going to do I'm going to play like a one note for the start, and then I'm going to go to to make it really punky. So let's try this. Punky and Brewster. Hit record. See, we stay on this screen. Ready? 3, 4. A couple of problems. You probably spotted them. Number one, I didn't turn my preamp up, so the guitar sends a lot louder signal than the bass does. So can you see that we can't really see the bass here? Yeah, that's because I needed to turn up the gain knob on my audio interface. So we're just going to scrap all of that. And what we're going to do is turn up the gain. Now, this is actually on the interface itself, so you can't actually see it, but imagine that I'm twiddling a knob and turning it up. At the moment, it's at about 10 o'clock. I'm going to spin it around to 12 o'clock and then just play and see. That's going to be a bit better because although it's a little bit high now, I'm just going to turn it down a notch to about 11 o'clock because I was seeing that it was actually clipping on. We also don't have the... We'll turn the monitor off. I was noticing that the little red light was coming on. So I was clipping on my audio interface. So we don't want that. So I've turned it down to about 11 o'clock. And now when we play, if you watch the little monitor there in GarageBand, it sits around 50 to 70%. And that's what we want. So that when we dig in, it might go up to about 80 or 90, but it's not going to go over the top and completely clip there. So let's try this again. We'll set these two tracks ready to go again. We'll hit record and let's play some bass. I don't know why, but I had to dig in on that octave up. It's not bass unless you play an octave up, right? All right, that'll do for a little bit of bass laid down there. So we have drums, we have guitar, we have bass. Now this dummy track here, that's just nothing. So you can just delete that straight afterwards. It was just, whoop, don't delete both. Undo, undo, undo. Just delete that one there and we'll be good to go. Geez, it feels good to be playing something a bit heavier for a change. And the good thing about these is, of course, we can change these tones up, which we'll start playing around with when we do the EQ. We can use tone bridge, we can throw different amp simulators, we can do whatever we want on these, and we can change everything up to our heart's content, which we will do. What is this song about? Because I want to record some vocals. I brought 2 microphones here because I wanted to do 2 vocal passes on this. Now, I could be making up songs, but I need you folks here that are here live to give me some ideas on this one. So give me some topics for what this song should be about, and then we will make it up on the fly and see. I've got the vague vocal melody, but instead of going do-do-dos and da-da-das, just give me some ideas. What does this song remind you of, and what does it sound like? And while you give me some ideas, what I'm going to do is jump back over here. I'm going to talk about the microphones that I'm going to be using and why. So I'm going to use 2 microphones. I've talked about these 2 microphones a heap, and I thought, let's get practical and actually demonstrate them. So this is the Audio-Technica AT2020. It's a large diaphragm condenser microphone. This one's going to pick up a lot of stuff, because it's a large diaphragm condenser. It's got a lot of clarity, it's going to have a lot of high end, and you're going to hear that it's going to be super crispy. This one is the AKG D5. So I'm going to do a run on both of these, and this one is a dynamic microphone. So this one will not pick up as much high end. When we go to the EQ, you'll sort of see that this is going to be a lot flatter, a lot smoother, and it won't be quite as crispy and top-endy. We've got Surfing in Adelaide. Yeah, it's got to be a surfing song, doesn't it? I don't know how to surf. Maybe it's a song about the fact that I live near the beach and I don't know how to surf. That could be cool. Tremor Bear's got it. A little bit of surf punk. Lyrics about writing a punk song. There you go. Writing a punk song about surfing in Adelaide. I think folk punk and Tremor Bear have got a little bit of something together there. By the way, people talk about weather. Yeah, I know it's crazy cold. I hope everyone's safe. It's crazy cold and wet and rainy in some parts. It's crazy hot and sunny in other parts. Again, as I always say, it's almost like the climate is changing somehow. Who knew that? Yeah, definitely got a summer vibe. All right, let's sing a little bit. Let's sing a song about summer. Let's sing about not knowing how to surf and it being summer. I like the idea of that one. So what we need to do is we need to create a vocal track this time. So we're going to hit, hello Still Illa, thanks for dropping on by. Surfing away from the sharks. There you go, that's what Mark Bro says. We've got sharks, surfing, Adelaide, writing a punk song. Let's try all this business. So let's go with our vocal. Now here with vocals in GarageBand, I go to audio recorder. We're going to go to voice. And I normally use either lead vocals or something like the punchy presence. Probably going to go punchy presence for something like a pop punk kind of sound. And we're going to turn the monitoring on. Check. 1, 2, 3. La 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 da 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 da. Okay, I can already see, and you can hear, hopefully, and see that is clipping. So at the moment, my dial is at about 1 o'clock. We're going to dial it back to 12 o'clock on input 1 here, and we're going to sing again. La da 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 ba da ba 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 da. Sorry, I realise I'm on 2 microphones, so I'm actually clipping, so it's not giving you a good representation. Let's turn down this microphone, and we're just over here now. Da 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 da. That's about right. So the reason I wanted to get that set at that level is that I want to make sure that when I'm singing, I'm not going to be clipping. And you want to sit where you're somewhere between 50 and 70%. Err on the side of being too low. Remember, if you record too low, you can always increase your volume. And in a digital system with low noise floor, you're going to be okay with that. If you record too high and you clip, digital clipping is almost unrecoverable from. Here's the first taste of our EQ. We are going to get to EQ here, I promise you. But here's the first taste of EQ. We've just got a low and a high. So this is a very basic EQ. If you come here to your spot here, if you turn these up and down, they're actually completely independent to all this stuff. So it's just this effect EQ here. So it's basically like a very simple EQ. So you can turn it on and you can just add some lows and highs. We're just going to completely turn it off. In fact, we're going to remove it because I always hate this effect EQ. Let's get rid of it. We won't need that one. All right, but we do have a little bit of ambience here, and we're going to add a little delay because I like to sing, especially when it's punk, with a little delay, a little verb, and the compressor there is just sort of set to the middle there. So we'll play around with this and mix it as we go. But I thought we would just record something. Oh man, I should probably go to ChatGPT to do the lyrics, shouldn't I? Yeah, maybe later if we've got some time. All right, let's do our dummy track again. So this time, because we're on channel 1, we just need to come into our dummy track and change this one to channel 2, because we're recording through the microphone now, and come back out, and now we can set up both of these to record. This one's coming through, and I'm going to hit the record button, and we're going to make up some song lyrics about surfing. And writing a punk song about surfing in Adelaide, even though I don't know how to surf. All right, let's try this. I'm over on this mic now only, so we'll hit record. Ooh, check, 1, 2, 3. So this is just going to be the intro. I'm imagining like some surfy lead guitar over the top there, I guess. Let's do it. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the sand. I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer. I don't know what's in the water, and I'll never have all the facts. And so on. And second verse. All right. Okay, that was kind of rubbish, but also kind of awesome at the same time. You gotta love the serendipity of just throwing something out there, don't you? Let's take a listen. Let's go. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the sand. I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer. 'Cause I don't know what's in the water, and I'll never have all the facts. Oh man. Okay, so we've got some vocals, because that's what we want. Max and Pete should do improv. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. All right. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a completely different. I don't even remember. I'm not going to remember that verse. So we're going to do a completely different verse. This time we're going to switch out the microphone, and we're going to sing it with the AKG D5. And we'll see how close I get to that, or whether I make up different words. So all we have to do this time. In fact, you know what? I don't like that vocal sound. We're going to go back to the lead vocal. That's going to have a little bit more. It's going to have a little bit more. Of the drive and the vocal hall, which is like more reverb. So let's just see what that sounded like. Dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, But, all right. I don't know what's in the water. That'll be a keeper line, so still illa. Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, this is why I like doing this sort of thing. And by the way, next week we're going to do a songwriting episode of GarageBand Weekly, but apparently I took it 1 week early. I'm going to turn off the air conditioner too. Just realised that that's kicking in, and that's going to probably get caught in the microphone, which we'll find out in a minute. All right, so we'll come up a little bit further here so we don't have to listen to all that intro again. We'll grab our dummy track. We'll make sure that we're check 1, 2, 3. So check 1, 2, 3. What you're noticing there is the reason that I didn't have the thing down low enough is that I've been using this microphone recently. So I actually need to turn my input gain back up to around to about 2 o'clock. Check 1, 2, 3, bar, bar, bar. Probably even further, probably closer to 3 o'clock. Check 1, 2, 3, bar, bar. There you go. So the reason for that is that on the condenser microphone, it has a lot more gain. It's using phantom power. It sends a lot more gain into your interface. So you always need to turn your input gain down when you're using a condenser microphone, and you'll need to turn your input gain up when you're using a dynamic microphone. As a general rule, most of the time. Like most things in audio, it's exactly that all the time, except when it's not. There you go. All right, let's record. Coming in here. Let's do it.
Oh, a life I dreamed of how to surf, but I've never.
I've got to mute out the first vocal, otherwise I'm going to get super duper confused. Let's try that again.
Always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath. Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and manta rays that might sting me in the butt. I just don't think I can get over my fear. But I live in Adelaide near the beaches, so I probably should learn how to surf.
We had this microphone on that time, so you would have been hearing a little bit in the background there. Let's delete that one out. So whoop, we did it again. I did it again. There we go. Delete that one. So you'll notice instantly that this one here, we'll bring this back in. This one's super spiky, because it's capturing those little bits of extra kind of top end stuff, and this one's a lot smoother. Even though we put the volume up, the one there is different. So let's just A/B these real quick. I know they're going to have different lyrics because I made them up as we went along, but if we play these, let's do it.
All my life I've dreamed of how to surf,
Condenser.
but I've never had the time to learn. I'm always worried about
Dynamic.
what might be underneath.
Can you hear that that's got that more nasally mid-range?
Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and I don't want to
That's a
bite
lot
it
more
in
airy.
the sand. I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer.
Why did I say beer like that? Beer! It's like a country song. Not very punk, Johns. Oh well. All right, so we've got ourselves some drums, we've got ourselves some bass, and we've got a couple of guitars. A couple of guitars. A couple of vocals. The last thing I'm going to do is just do some backing vocal here. And then we will dive into the actual EQ. We're only 42 minutes into the show, and we haven't actually done any of this yet. Did I mention that this show goes off on weird tangents? Yeah, it does. All right, so let's just duplicate out this track. Well, again, grab this one. So once you start using GarageBand, you'll find that you get pretty quick with this sort of thing. So let's check. Whoa. Let's do it.
All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. I'm always worried about what might be underneath. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the sand. I just don't think I can get over some beer. But I don't need Adelaide in the water. No, I probably should learn how to surf.
Again, just so that we've got something as a bit of an example of some back-end vocals, we'll throw that in there. All right, delete out our dummy track there, and we'll play that. Punk came because of angry right? Angry teenagers. Like the refreshments, you reckon, Dan? Hello, Dan Ekberg, by the way. Hello to anyone who's just joining and going, what the heck is going on around here? Rod says my show should be called Ron's Tangents. Yeah, I know. Look, I never promise. When I do a tutorial video, yeah, fair enough. You should be able to get boom, 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 boom. When we're doing these shows, we're going to have a little bit of fun. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, we'll just we'll blank out those ones. Let's pretend, firstly, that we're using this as our main vocal here. What we'll do is we'll do a quick faders down mix here so that we can get a decent mix of these four instruments. So when we're talking faders down, it's exactly what it sounds like. We turn all the faders down, and then we bring them up one by one. There's our Kyle. We'll bring up our power chords. Yeah. Sitting about there. Our bass. And then vocals. How to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the sand. I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer. 'Cause I don't know what's in the water, and I'll never have all the facts. Yeah, you're right. Whoever it was that said the I don't know, it's still Illa, I think. I don't know what's in the water. I think that could be a good hook. Yeah, I need a better second line, and I probably need to expand that chorus out to like 4. We'll cover this. We'll talk about that next week when we do some more songwriting stuff. But we'll get there. Yeah, fare thee well for those who are here late. Hello, Zach Thong. Thank you for dropping on by. Appreciate you, my friend. So let's talk about EQ now. We've got a basic mix of this song, and I thought this would be a good way to start with a little bit of EQ. There are basically 3 levels of EQ in my opinion. There is the very basic stuff, which is how much bass and how much treble do I have? Then you kind of go into the middle, which is where you can use the visual EQ in GarageBand. And then you've got things like LRC5, LRC7, and the new band EQ, where you've got a lot more tools to really sculpt your tone. So let's grab this vocal. Let's grab Pete's funny vocal here and use this as our main example point. So if we hit play. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. So, and again, because I recorded this without headphones, there's a little bit of background noise in there. There's what we call mic bleed. I don't care about that because it's just playing what the song is anyway. But if you really cared about that, wear some headphones and you'll be a lot better off. We'll just wait for the internet to come back again. Apologies for those, especially watching on the replay. You're not even watching live, but for whatever reason, we've got some technical difficulties here today. So I'm just going to wait for that to redeem itself, and then we'll jump in and we'll start looking at the EQ stuff. I hope you're well. I'm just going to check my phone, make sure I'm not doing anything else online that it's going to be causing this to be the case. I'm going to shut down all my apps. I'm going to close off everything else. So apologies for the quality of the internet. Yesterday we had a perfect show. Thankfully for Your Music Live, everything stayed on perfectly and we didn't have a single problem. But for whatever reason here today, let's come back to my mug over here. For whatever reason today, we're just seeing this problem happening. About once every hour, it'll just sort of drop down, the internet will drop out, and then it'll sort of slowly come back online. And maybe it's the school holidays. Maybe there's too many kids at home watching Disney Plus, watching Disney movies and things. I don't know, but it's rough. And there's not much I can do for it apart from just suck it up and deal and hope for the best. Hope it comes back, which is back now. All right, thank you for your patience, folks. We'll what I should do is I should have like a special do like Jeopardy music when that happens, when the internet drops off. All right. Let's talk about this. So in its fundamental version, when GarageBand was first released, all you had was this. So this was your EQ. Treble, how much treble, and how much bass. And that was all you had, because all of this was added afterwards. All your plugins at EQ didn't used to have all of these. You didn't even have these things out here. So you had nothing apart from that. So I kind of grew up when I first started using GarageBand version 2.0. It was all about this. But this is a good way of kind of learning a little bit about the fundamentals of EQ. So your treble knob here is literally like the treble on your stereo, on your home stereo or on your Walkman or whatever it is. It'll turn the treble of this sound up and down. So let's play this vocal. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach. So hopefully you're hearing that is making it sound super crispy. Yeah? Because the treble's gone up. If we do the opposite, each I should probably know. It's lost all that treble. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff. So in its fundamental form, your treble's being turned up and down. Your bass, you can do the same sort of thing here. So if we play this, dreamed of how turn up the bass, surf, but I've never had the time to learn. And turn it down. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. And it actually adjusts it there. Now if we jump in here to our visual EQ, The cool thing is that we can see what this will be doing, because all this is doing now is controlling that visual EQ. So for instance, if the bass is all the way down here, what this is actually doing from an EQ curve point of view is doing a high pass filter. So it's cutting off all the frequencies below 200 hertz and then rolling up to here. So you're losing a lot of that low end. If we flip this around and we come out to here and we turn the bass all the way up, we can come back in here and see what that's going to do. Yeah, there you go. It's done a shelf. So it's shelved everything from that 200 hertz. The same with your other knob. If you grab your other knob here and you put your treble knob up, just put that bass back to there, and you see what this has done to your visual EQ. Yeah, see how it's raising it up? It's giving you a shelf up there from 6 kilohertz, and exactly the same thing if you wanted to bring this knob down. It goes the other way, and we come back into here. It's doing the same sort of thing. So fundamentally, all that's doing is doing nothing to the mids. It's literally just turning the bass up or down and turning the treble up and down. It's doing this one at about 5,000 hertz and this one at about 200 hertz. So that's all we used to have. So be thankful that you live in the future where we have a lot more to it than that. So that's sort of the easiest way, is that if you were listening to this, so if I wanted to just, if I'm like, this is sounding a bit harsh, this vocal, all my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had, I'm using a condenser mic and I've got a little bit too much treble. If I was super lazy, and I am, I would come here and I'd just drop this down a little bit. So let's just find a spot where this might be nice. Had the time to learn, being here in the beach, I should probably know. So I'd sit at about there, right? I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want... And you can see there that that's just rolled it off on the top end there. So the difference there is that you've got more control here. So if I wanted to then come in here and take a look at this, I can actually change at what position that is actually cut off. So if I only wanted the real top airiness, I can actually move this to the side and go, I only want the very high stuff to come off. So let's just show you what I mean by that if we play. Wanna bite it in the sand, I'm just so that's removing a lot of those top frequencies. Some beer. But I might just want... I don't know what's in the water. I might want just the very top to come off. Have all the... So I might want to just do something like that. So that's a very simple way. So that's your super simple and your intermediate when it comes to EQ. But there's a whole bunch of other things you can do. And we'll start by playing around with the visual EQ, because you'll notice here that we also have some mid-range. So we can find a frequency here in the middle and turn it up and down. We've got our bass here that we can turn up and down, and we've got our top end here. Now, all we can really use is what's built in here. So we can only use the dots here, and they're only what is called a parametric change. So you can't do things like a shelf, like a proper shelf or a low pass or any of the other types of filters that we'll show you when we get to the band EQ in a moment. The other thing that visual EQ has, and I suggest you very carefully think about how often you use this, is the analyzer. The analyzer is good if you do want to take a look at where the frequencies are landing here. So if we again go back to the start of this vocal and we take a play. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. So you can see in the mid-range there, the notes I'm actually hitting. You can see all the frequencies, the overtones of the frequencies there. You can see a little rumble in the low end there as well, which is probably more that bass and guitar and drums that are coming through in the bleed. So if I played this, what I'd probably want to do is grab this. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the... Because I don't really want, see these little bits that are lobbing around here at 100 hertz and 150 hertz, I don't want those. So I'd probably drop that down there. The mid-range here, I'd probably want to leave in the middle there, because I don't think I need to enhance anything in this one. And I'd probably want to roll off the top end like I have been doing to get... The sand, I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer. Because I don't know what's in... And in fact, because this is a condenser mic, I'm finding it a little bit crispier there. So I might even want to do something a little bit like that, just to make it a little bit nicer in the middle. All my life I've dreamed of how to surf. Because what you can do with EQ is use the sweep method, where you basically sweep left to right and you find a frequency by boosting it. And that's how you can identify some of those nasty nasally tones that you may want to remove by putting it down. But I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't... So you can go with something like that. Now, what you're going to find here, though, is because of the basic setup of the visual EQ, you're removing a lot of stuff that you may not want to. So for instance, I may actually want this sparkle at the very top end here to stay in there, but I might want to cut it just before there. So I may not want to lose all that nice sort of air, what we call air, or it's a bit of a wanky term, but that sparkle in the top end, but I may want to drop it down there. So that's another option I'd have with this one, and it would sound more like this.
All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably...
So you can still choose to remove any of those frequencies that you might not like that are too kind of nasally, but you may want to sort of adjust it and tweak it. Because remember, there is no right, there is no wrong. It is whatever sounds good and whatever sounds good to you. The other thing I'll mention at this point is that EQing when you're just soloed is generally not the right idea, because your EQ is to try and make your instruments balance with the rest of them. So I'm just showing you this and I'm soloing this because I wanted to explain how this all works. But in reality, if I was EQing this vocal, I would have it in the mix.
All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time.
Because you can hear now that with the rest of the tracks there, because I've made some cuts, and again, EQ should be more about cutting than adding, subtractive as opposed to additive, it's actually a lot, it needs to go up. So I need to boost the gain. So what you might find is, and the reason you've got a gain slider over here, is that as you're cutting, it's actually reducing the overall volume. So once you've found the EQ that sounds right, you can then adjust it back in to mix it back in with your track.
Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff.
So again, it's probably still a little bit crispy, but with the visual EQ, there's kind of limitations around that one. Let's jump back over to the other vocal now and play with this one, because I did mention before the reason that I did, and I'm using voice as the demonstrator here. You can EQ obviously on drums, you can EQ guitars, you can EQ bass and everything else. The reason I'm using voice here as the main one is it's the more complex kind of instrument, and it's easier to hear the subtleties of the changes in EQ, in my humble opinion. Again, remember, it's 2023, people. It's in my opinion. It's in my experience. So we'll come in here and we'll grab our EQ again. Once again, we could just use the treble and bass like that. We can come in here to the visual EQ. But let's turn the analyzer on for this one and take a look at what the difference is using this microphone that's going to have a lot less of the crispier high-end stuff.
I've always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath.
So you can already hear there that it's a lot less crispy if we compare that to the original vocal that we recorded here.
All my life I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and man, to raise the...
So with this particular one, what I might want to do instead of doing what I did before, still a bit of low end that I probably want to bring out there, but I don't think I'd want to cut. I'd probably, if anything, want to boost the top end, because I'm using a dynamic mic, to give it a little bit more of that air and sparkle.
I've always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it.
And I might even want to grab this middle one and give an even bigger treble boost in the middle there.
I'm always worried about what might be underneath. Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff.
So that's kind of the limitations of what you've got with your visual EQ. So it's not a full-on parametric EQ because you can't do everything with it. And the reason that in the past, let's just get rid of the tuning. I'm not going to tune my vocal on this one. In the past, what I've recommended is plugins like LRC5 and LRC7, is that they give you, I still use 5 because I prefer it, they give you the opportunity to actually change everything here, and you can see you can have a proper high pass filter there, and then you can move things up and down. And if you tap and pinch and zoom on these, you can actually change the Q setting. So you'll notice that you couldn't change how narrow, how much of the band was changing there. It was always a big chunky amount, so you couldn't make the sort of precise changes that you can make using something like LRC5. So for the longest time, I've recommended using these LRC ones because you can do a lot more with them than you can. And yeah, but these days, we've got a brand new plugin. And I thought the main reason I wanted to talk about EQ here today was to talk about this plugin. So if we hit the plus button here, and oops, we're on the wrong track, are we? No, we're on the right one. So we'll hit the plus button here. We will go to audio unit extensions. And if we scroll to the bottom, we will go to the band EQ. And we'll tap on band EQ. So this is the brand new Band EQ. Now, you need to double tap on one of these to actually make it active, and then you can actually adjust it. So the cool thing about this is you'll see that it's really easy to put this band on a frequency and then to change the Q setting. So you can make it really wide, you can make it really narrow. So all you need to do that, we'll just rehash it, double tap it, bring it back here. So if it's not on, so if you just tap over here, you can turn these on and off by just tapping on them. All the Rangers are playing the Blue Jackets today. Oh, come on. Pete's obviously gone overtime, missing the hockey game. So you can tap these, and each one you tap will turn on a new one, and they're all color-coded there. So let's just go one by one here. Now this one at the start here, you generally don't want this to be a parametric because you don't really want to leave all the stuff here of your bass and then just have a little bit cut out. So you can actually change it. If you tap up here, you can change it. And there's a whole bunch here. You got low pass, high pass, band pass, you got shells, you got everything that you can possibly use here. So we want probably either a Butterworth or a resonant high pass filter. So we'll put the Butterworth on there, which is just going to give you that smooth. Is it called Butterworth because it's smooth? I don't know. So if we set this, so there's our 100 hertz, there's about the 200 hertz. So what this is doing is it's doing a proper high pass filter. Because remember the other one that we had? We couldn't actually position it properly and it wasn't rolling it off. It was literally just a parametric EQ that happened to be at the low end. So this is going to give us a proper low pass filter. So if we play our vocal on this one, we'll just solo it so we can take a listen.
I've always wanted to learn to serve, but I never
So there's
had the
that.
time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath.
So that's just showing you what this high-pass filter is doing. It's called a high-pass filter because it allows everything above that frequency to go through. So you can see if we set it to here, it's at around about 200 hertz. Actually, you can see it. If you look in the top right, if we see the little numbers that are popping up over here, that's telling us where we're setting it. So you've got a lot more precision here. So we're setting it right on 200 hertz. And what this means is that it'll start rolling everything off. Everything from about 70 hertz below is going to be completely removed. And then everything from 70 hertz right up to 200 hertz, it's going to roll that in, which means it's not going to just cut it. It's going to give you a little bit of reduction there. So if we play this now, and the reason that you'd use that's your rumble. That's if you're in a high traffic street, if there's a bus or a truck running past, if you've got some ground hum at like that 60 hertz ground hum that you'll sometimes have in there, that's what that can do. So I wouldn't say always, but almost always, especially in the home studio, adding a high pass filter or a low cut filter, it's sometimes called, is a good idea. Now we can grab some other bands here and start sculpting this. So if we turn on band number 2 and drag this one across. So this one we may want to be a parametric EQ. So this is the one that we're going to use to find a frequency that we may not like and maybe remove it. So because I've got a nasally voice, we're going to come here to the middle and we're going to play this, and I'm going to turn this up, and we're just going to gently sweep it side to side and see if there's a frequency that really doesn't sound good.
I've always wanted to learn to serve, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about...
Again, there's that nasally kind of tone around about there. And it'll depend, and it also depends on your ear, but somewhere in that sort of mid-range is where you're going to tend to find some tones that maybe you don't like or that are not going to work well. So if I didn't like this particular tone, for instance,
about what might be underneath.
let's cut it. So we can just reduce that.
Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and manta rays that might sting me in the butt.
And you can move it all the way down. So this is the difference here, is that you've got complete control. Now your Q setting is how wide that's going to be. You can do what's called notch filtering if you want. So if there's a frequency that you really don't like, but it's a very narrow frequency, a really narrow range here, you can grab your Q, drag that in, and then bring it down just at that. And you get this kind of cliff where it just jumps off a cliff there. So let's take a listen.
I've always wanted to learn to serve, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath. Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and manta rays that might sting me in the butt.
Yeah. Phil Gomes says, Beato says that around that 1,000 hertz is usually a nasally frequency that you may want to reduce some of. And again, because you've got all these bands, you could find that maybe you want to do like a really small cut here because you don't like that one. And then guess what? You can stick a third band on here and bring that down here and go, and actually, I also want to do a smaller, narrower cut here. So this is where you get all those funky, if you've ever looked at those really like up and down funky EQ curves and gone, what the heck is going on there? It's usually something like this. So that's what you can do to do cuts, and you can do the same to boost. So if there was a frequency you really wanted to highlight, so let's just say that on this one, I wanted a little boost up in the top end here because I'm using this dynamic microphone. I'd grab another one here, and let's find a frequency that maybe I actually want to have more of.
I've always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath.
Let's just say I wanted a little extra crispiness. I could throw another parametric there. Now, the other thing we can do, and I think Audible was mentioning this before, is that sometimes, especially when you're using a dynamic microphone or you've got some more muddy guitars or something, you want that high-end sparkle, and that's where you can use a shelf filter, which can come in handy. So let's turn on number 5, and let's make this a shelf. So we'll grab number 5, Johnny 5 is alive, and we'll move it across. Oop, did I grab the wrong one? No, there's my boost. So we can bring this one across to here. Now, the reason we're only sort of stopping here at 10,000 hertz is that's kind of the audible range. So it's not going to let you go much higher than that. I don't think even if you put the number 8 on here, it's going to, no, it's that's its limitation. We'll turn that one off again. There we go. So if you wanted to have a shelf, you can come here to parametric, and this time, let's go a high shelf. And the difference now is that, can you see that what it's doing there is instead of it just creating that notch, it's actually shelving that. So I'll turn it up just so you can see there. So see how it goes, and it just creates this shelf where it turns it up and then has it static from there. So I'll show you what this sounds like when we actually start playing it through a vocal.
I've always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath.
So there you go, a little high shelf there, around about, what's that, about 6,000 hertz. So that's not necessarily the EQ curve that I would end up with this particular song, but it's interesting. You can actually take a look at that and see if it's going to work. Now, if you want to sort of do a A-B comparison using that, we can come out of there and you can turn it on and off. So let's come back here and we'll play it. If we turn the plugin off, it sounds like this.
I've always wanted to learn to surf, but I never had the time to learn to do it. I'm always worried about what might be underneath.
Bring it back into the mix.
Yes, I'm worried about sharks and stuff, and manta rays that might sting me in the butt. I just don't think I can get...
So I'm instantly hearing that I've probably done a little bit too much rolling off on the bottom end there. So if we come back into here, oh wow, we found something weird here. It did this the other day as well. This is the format that we used to have. So it's reverted back to its original, which is bizarre. Let's if we go back out and we go here, well, there's a bug for you. Here I am. I'm like, use this great new band EQ. You're going to love it. Except you said it once, and look at this. It's reverted back. Pete might be lodging a ticket with Apple on this one because look at that. Yes, you can still... So this is a representation of all those things that we had here. So here's that Butterworth high pass. So what I'd want to do, what I was thinking is I'd actually drop this down because I think it's doing too much. So I actually want it to drop it down to maybe like 100 hertz there instead of that 200 hertz that we were at.
Get over my fear.
So we keep a little bit more of that bass. But that's interesting. I don't know why it's actually reverted to that setup. Interesting stuff. Let's add it to a new one. So again, you can do this with everything else. So I won't go into detail on this because you can use this knowledge, and look, there's so much stuff about EQ, the different instruments and where they sit in the EQ spectrum, some tricks you can do, why you'd want to remove high end or low end. But remember, at the end of the day, don't overcomplicate it. People that have been doing this for ages will use lots of fancy terms, and they'll probably confuse you, and they'll probably make you feel bad because you don't know all the terms they're using. But fundamentally, it's a volume control for each frequency. So do you need to turn the bass up or down? Do you need to turn the mids up or down? Do you need to turn the treble up or down? And the different types, the parametrics and the Q settings, is just how much of it do you want to turn up and down, and at what sort of resolution. So do you want it to be really steep and just a little bit cut out, or do you want it to be a nice flat bit? All right, I'm intrigued now to learn what's going to happen if we add the band EQ to this one and then change it. So we'll come in here, we'll get rid of that track reverb for now, and we'll add in the band EQ, because that is a problem. That is a problem. All right, band EQ, there it is. And see, this is what it should look like, right? That's what it looked like before. So for this guitar, we might want that nice high shelf that we had before. Yeah, bit of guts. We might want to remove the rumble by just throwing a high pass filter on. Cool. So we can go ahead and play around with that. I'm just intrigued now to see if we go back in, is it going to stay on there? Yeah, see, it's staying there now. What if we go back to this one? Why is it? Yeah, and look, there's usually a little button there to switch between and to take it back. But I think because they've added these in and they haven't probably... Yeah, there it is. So you should have that button where you switch between the two, because that's the old interface and that's the new interface. But for whatever reason, when I've added it down to this one and I've set in my EQ, it doesn't have that there. Let's undo it. If we just remove it and add it back in, boom, 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 remove it, add it back in, and we'll see what happens. The one final thing I want to say about EQ is you've probably noticed a mistake I've made here, which is that your EQ should generally be at the end of your signal chain. So if we hit the edit button here, you can see here that I've actually got the EQ before the overdrive and before the reverb. So what you generally want to do is grab on that one and drag it down and make it the very last thing on your chain. So your EQ should kind of be your cleanup at the end. There it is. It looks fine. It's lost all my settings, but it looks fine. So you should be able to switch between these two. I've, for whatever reason, found a bug that has meant that it has done the wrong thing. So let's just quickly throw a couple of things in here. Oh, and now it's got that message stuck on there. Even though I am adding bands, it's saying that there's no bands added. It's got some teething problems here, folks. I'm telling you, because I can't. It's working. It's in there behind, but I can't get rid of that message. It's not clicking away. Yeah. So a few challenges there for the new GarageBand EQ. We'll see how we go with that. So there, that's your basics of your EQ. I hope if you already knew all this stuff, fantastic. And a lot of folks will already know more than I do about EQ. I use the EQ as a tool. I'm a tool and EQ is a tool too. So EQ is just a good way to clean things up. If you're finding that those guitars are super muddy, use the methods I showed you there. Find the frequencies that are creating that mud and cut them, reduce them. If you're finding that you've got lots of rumble and low end in your vocals and it's making your bass and your kick drum sound bad, put it on a high pass filter and remove it. If you find that your vocals are sounding a bit flat and you're not airy enough, don't have that nice sparkle in the top end, then maybe add a high shelf. And just experiment, play around with it, enjoy it, have fun. Because here's the thing. A lot of folks find this problem that you start out and you don't know what you're doing, so you're twiddling knobs. And I think someone said at the very start of the show, I want to learn this stuff because I don't want to just twiddle knobs anymore. But sometimes you can learn too much, and then you try all these fancy things, and you realize, I did better when I was just twiddling knobs. So you can know stuff, but you can also know too much, and you can spend too much time not creating music. Because remember, I don't want to spend all the time playing around and learning about EQ. I want to know the basics of it so I can get in there and start using it and create music. High pass filter, my brain has one. There you go. All right. Now, I have been, apologize, I've been ignoring the chat, but we will get back on track. That is all my EQ talk today. I did think we were going to go with a long one today. No problem, Folk Punk. Appreciate you. Going to rewatch this one. No problems. And I'm a novice. A novice or a novice? Hello, Seth Fry. Thanks for being here. And I use my Apple Mac Mini. You got lots of plugins, not on my GarageBand. Yeah, so the plugins on GarageBand Mac are similar but different to the plugins. And that's actually a good point too, is that this one is actually based, if you go into GarageBand Mac, the band EQ is in there as well. So all those plugins plus a few more are on Mac if you go into the Apple plugins on your Mac. So if you're using a Mac, all the information I talked about today is almost exactly the same as on the Mac. or on Reaper, or on Pro Tools, because EQ is the same everywhere. It might have some different knobs and dials, so some, instead of being the parametric, might just have different frequencies and you turn knobs up and down. Some may just have a slider, some may just have low and high, like the basic stuff. Some may have a full parametric, some may have 12 bands or 20 bands. You can go nuts with this stuff, but fundamentally, volume controls for your different frequencies. Have I missed any? Have I missed any things? Jade says I had a similar issue on my show loading multiple instances of the same AUV3 in GarageBand. Yeah, I think it's just got some teething problems there with the new interface because they snuck these in. See, if they got me to do beta testing for them or beta testing, we would find this stuff. Hello, Crow on a Wire. Hope you are doing well as well. Yeah, it is way better than the main stock GarageBand iOS EQ, 100%. But if it only works. Must be hard to EQ metal. Yeah, well, look, it can be, but it's the same sort of principle. It's like you still want a balanced mix. Even though metal has a lot of bass, you still kind of want a balanced mix at the end of the day. I accidentally purchased a multi-band compressor on the App Store. Oops, got to figure that out now. Wow, yeah, multi-band compression. Maybe that's a topic for another day because, yeah, that is different again. If in its simplest form, though, if you know what a compressor is and you know what EQ is, you know what a multi-band compressor is because all you're talking about is compressing but doing different compression at different EQ levels. So instead of just going, here's my guitar, I compress the whole goddamn thing, you might want to only compress the nice sort of fluffy top end or mid-range of your guitar. Make sure you're not compressing the bass because that's going to make it compete with your bass guitar. Something like that. So that's the basics of your multi-band compressor. Alrighty, we have a few. We're gonna power through these last few things because I've gone way over on the feature topic. The rant of the week. I was going to talk about power, and I will really quickly. I basically just wanted to complain about the fact that power is so random and trying to power different things. So, for instance, my daughter got an iPad, and my other daughter got an iPhone. And I was trying to plug them in, and they all using different things. So there's 1.1 amp, there's 2 amp, there's 3 amp. There's different voltages for different things. One of them, the iPad still uses Lightning, but has the Lightning to USB-C charger, whereas the iPhone has the Lightning to USB-A charger. It didn't even come with headphones in the... I don't know. I just wanted to have an old man rant about the fact that we have zero standard when it comes to power. Not only the connections, but sometimes you can plug everything in and it looks like it's all good, and then it doesn't work. For instance, my kids got some RGB lights for Christmas, and we were plugging them in yesterday, and I plugged it into a USB port, and nothing happened. I'm like, oh gosh, these are dead on arrival. This is going to be so disappointing. And then I'm like, wait a minute, check the specs. Needs at least a 2 amp port, and I was plugging it into a 1.1. So I unplugged it, plugged it in a new adapter, worked like a charm. So yeah, something to keep in mind that sometimes you need to really carefully look at those power requirements and the voltage and the amperage and the connector and all that sort of stuff. So not fun times. The plugin or the app of the week is the Voice Memos app. So if you liked the sound of that little punk song that I wrote there, the reason that I could just grab an idea and throw it in here is that it started in Voice Memos. So I'm not going to go into detail. I've showed Voice Memos before, but it is such a handy app because this I just recorded on my acoustic guitar just when I had a bit of an idea. It sounded like this. And then that was what I then recorded in this morning to play around with in GarageBand. So again, just use your voice record. Every time you have an idea, open your voice memo, record it. And the cool thing is you can export it, you can edit it, you can do all sorts of cool things. The Voice Memos app is amazing. I've got a whole video here on the channel. If you search my name, Pete Johns Voice Memos, it'll go through everything about the Voice Memos app. Don't lose those ideas, folks. You don't have to lose the ideas. If you wake up, some of mine sound hilarious because I've literally woken up in the morning and I'm like, I don't want to wake up my wife, so I'm like, and you go back and listen to it and you're like, why does that sound so weird? That's why. My tip of the week is to keep things simple when you're recording in GarageBand on iOS. I have tried mixers, but they just don't work. I've tried the like a Yamaha style mixer. I've tried my Samson mix pad. I've tried my Zoom Live Track. Mixers seem to be really challenging. You would have seen earlier when I was plugging in my audio interface, it was dead simple because it was literally channel 1, channel 2, left or right input, and then the output just goes back through the USB. You can turn the monitoring on or off on both the interface and on GarageBand here, and it all works. The hardest thing to set up with a mixer is like a mix minus, where you are not getting the original audio. And every time I've tried to record in GarageBand iOS using a mixer, it's taken me forever to work out how to just get the input going in that I want and not overdub and not bring in that original audio. Just send that audio to my headphones. The reason I wanted to talk about this is I've had 2 people ask me this question in the last week, and both people, unfortunately, I've had to say, I would just get an audio interface. I would go out and buy a very cheap, like a PreSonus or an M Audio, Steinberg, Focusrite, iRig. There's a heap of really good ones out there. About $100. Plug it in, start recording, and you're good to go. As much as I love mixers for what I'm doing right now, I could not do this show without a mixer because I got stuff going everywhere into all sorts of different channels. It's great for live streaming. It's great for recording whole bands. As soon as you start doing multi-tracking and overdubbing, the mixer just adds a level of complexity that I don't think you need. So I would highly recommend that if you're struggling to get a mixer working with your iPhone or your iPad, I would just invest in a 1 or 2 channel audio interface, especially if you're an individual artist and you're just recording one track at a time. It makes life a heck of a lot easier. All right. So that's we flew through those because we took so long with the EQ. Hello, Eddie de Guzman. Thank you for joining us here. My assignment for this week is to check out Banditos by The Refreshments. Yeah, does it sound just like the song I made? Probably. I've never thought about the voice memo in musical terms. Yeah, just store it in there. You don't have to do much with it, but as soon as you have, those times where you have a mental blank and you can't think of what you'd possibly want to record, I just go to my voice memo. That's what I did today. I grabbed my voice memos and I'm like, I need an idea for like a rocky punky song to record, and it said punk idea, and I'm like, yeah, there you go. We've got a couple of questions here which we'll finish off with from Phil, from Clayton, and from Ivan. So I will grab those questions and one from Cess Fry as well. So we'll do a few Q&As here to finish off, and then is our friend Rock and Ronnie Ward? Has he got a show on today? Am I going over Ron's time? I think his show's a little later. From memory, let's see. I can't find. I thought he used to have a show on straight after this one, but I don't see anything here. Ron, if you're here and you do, let us know. I can't see any scheduled show. I know you've changed up your schedule a little bit lately, mate. But if you do have any final questions before we leave you, I will answer those. So do throw those in the chat. All right. So the questions that have come in, Clayton von Cluj asks a question. My lightning cable charger piece broke off my iPad. Any ideas? I've been going crazy. So lightning cable charger piece broke off in my iPad. Okay. Yeah. This can be tricky. I've had this happen a few times. How did I get it out? If there's usually the smallest amount sticking out the end, so if you've got a pair of tweezers, that's what I've used most of the time. So if it's not snapped off flush, because usually when it breaks off, it leaves a tiny little bit at the end. If you get a pair of tweezers, and especially the ones that kind of have like a serrated, like they have an abrasive end on them, they can usually, if you press really hard, even if there's only a little sliver, and give it a pull. Then you can usually get it out that way. If it's completely stuck in there, the other thing that people have done is used like a piece of blue tack that often doesn't have enough power because you sort of stick it, and you don't want to get any additional stuff stuck in there. Someone mentioned this to me in the past, and I wouldn't really recommend it, but using a toothpick with a piece of super glue, like the tiniest dot of super glue on the end, and then just glue that really carefully to the end and let it set, and then as soon as it's set, just give it a quick pull out. I don't know if I'd be putting super glue anywhere near the lightning port, but I have had this happen a few times. Thankfully, every time I've been able to kajigger it out, because it usually there's about a millimeter of stuff out the end. And if you get those tweezers that have the little abrasive bits on the end for plucking your eyebrows and stuff, and give it a pull, you should be okay. If anyone's got any other ideas, feel free to throw them. A vacuum. Yeah, get a bit of a vacuum on there. Yeah, have a few trying. It's in deep. Oh, it's in deep. Yeah, that's the problem. And yeah, super glue is nerve wracking. Exactly. Yeah. There's your ding. Magnet. No, yeah, I don't know. A really strong. I don't know. I think the idea of putting like a really powerful magnet next to my lightning port is probably even less of a good idea. Just quietly. Phil Gone, I'm in the market for a newish MacBook Pro. Do you guys prefer the M1 or Intel? I think I already saw folks answering this one, Phil, and it's M1 all the way, unfortunately. I haven't spoken to anyone in the last 2 years who has recommended to buy an Intel anymore. The M1 is so superior to it in terms of everything, in terms of heat generation, in terms of performance, in terms of energy efficiency. In multitasking, it kind of just crushes. So what I would actually do, right now, if I had $1,000, I wouldn't buy even a MacBook Pro, like a high-end older MacBook Pro. I would buy an absolute base model MacBook Air M1 because I still think that is better than any Intel MacBook Pro, just for what we do. You'll be happier with it because even if you've got an old MacBook Pro, it's probably got a whole bunch of spinning parts in there. It's going to have a fan in there. You've got no idea how much dust has been put in there in the past. I just think that we're at the point now where if you've still got an Intel and it's still working for you, keep using it by all means. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're in the market for a new or even a refurbished Mac, I would go a MacBook Air. I wouldn't even bother with the Pro. And don't go the MacBook Pro 13-inch. It is not really a Pro. It has the same chip as the MacBook Air. It just has the really bad design with the bar and stuff. So go a MacBook Air, either the M1 or the M2. Or if you've got a little bit more coin, the MacBook Pro 14-inch is the one that I've got. The M1 14-inch, that is a beast. That is a dream machine. I love it. I highly recommend it. So that's my tips on that one. Yeah, M1 is definitely the way to go. Contact cleaner and alcohol? Yeah, maybe that one. Dissolve it. Get some acid in there. Dissolve it out. Ivan says, love your videos. I have a question. How do you deal with electrical noise? Yeah, electrical noise or your ground loop type hums, if that's what you're experiencing, can be tough. Because it depends on other appliances you've got nearby. It depends on the electrical circuitry. If you're plugging into the same circuit that you've got other devices on, especially things like monitors and printers and routers and things, which you probably do, that can create problems. If you're using more portable gear, a battery-powered solution is always good. So if I have problems with power and with hum, I will just use my portable charger to charge to power my Steinberg UI22C, and that way you completely remove everything from the grid. There's also power conditioners that you can buy. So if you just go onto your Amazons or anywhere and search power conditioner, you can check out what you can get there. So normally they're designed to eliminate that ground loop hum and that power noise. So good luck with it. Yeah, it's a pain in the bum when you're just recording and you're just hearing that in the background. The other thing is you can use a high pass filter. So if it's not that bad and it's at 60 hertz, just throw a high-pass filter on and remove everything below 60 hertz. It'll do a pretty good job of removing that from your mix. So hopefully that helps you out. Cover everything in tinfoil. There you go, including your head. Says why there are two compressors, one of the plugins. Yeah, as you probably saw if you saw earlier in the show, there's also two EQs, there's two everythings, and it's a throwback to the fact that we used to only have the original ones. So over here, we used to only have this compressor, high or low, treble, bass. Then when they added the plugins and EQs, they added like additional details here. So you can now change your threshold and your ratio and your attack and your mix of your compressor, and the same with your EQ. You can now have a lot more precise control over your bass, your mids and your trebles with the visual EQ, whereas before it was just this. So I think it was just a throwback that they didn't want to redesign all this and remove this. But yeah, if you're ever wondering why the compressor, treble, bass and these master effects are here, that's all we had. In 2.0 until 2.1 of GarageBand, we didn't have any of this. We didn't have any plugins and EQ, and we didn't have any of these presets or anything to play around with. We had all the ones that are in fun. We had like the robot, and we had the bullhorn and the telephone. That's what we used to rock with. It was not a good time. But yeah, that's why we have two of those. So it's just a throwback to what it was before. And the final question we're going to answer here, because we are at 1.5 hours, we're like half an hour late, so I apologise for keeping you all here late. Any tips on how to use Logic Remote on the iPad to play drums while connected to a Mac? I watched your vid yesterday of you checking out. Yeah, I haven't played with Logic Remote for a really long time. I think, who has done it? I was watching a video because I was like, I should really do something on Logic Remote. There you go. Why Logic Pro Rules is my go-to channel. So I haven't actually watched this video, but I was doing some research the other day. I would go check out Why Logic Pro Rules. It's from 2 years ago, but there shouldn't be a whole lot that's changed there. And look, there's a couple. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh, that's for the Logic Pro sidecar. Yeah, so do this one. Why Logic Pro is the best controller you can buy for Logic. Yeah, check out that. I haven't done it, but Why Logic Pro Rules is the gold standard, and Logic Remote works almost exactly the same with GarageBand Mac as it does with Logic. You'll be good to go. A few Logic tutors, yeah. So there's Why Logic Pro Rules, and the other one that's missing in my brain, Thomas Christ, what's his name? Music Tech Help Guy. Yeah, so Music Tech Help Guy, Why Logic Pro Rules. If you need Logic videos, that's who I would go to. Phew. All right, that's been a long show, but I do thank you all for being here. Why don't we go out with a little bit of this song I recorded? Which vocal was better? I kind of preferred the second vocal. Actually, no, because I've just messed that up by changing it around. We're going to have to go with the first vocal instead. Take it off there, take that off there. So we created this. I think it's kind of fun when you can create something in a space of what? 45 minutes that we did that. So thank you everyone for being here on GarageBand Weekly. We'll be back to record the podcast later in the week. We've also got a big weekend of shows already up there on the channel that you can subscribe to. StudioLiveToday.com is the place to go for all of the Studio Live Today goodness. Leave a thumbs up on the way out if you wouldn't mind. That would really help me out, and I would love you forever if you do. And feel free to leave comments. If you're watching on the replay and you've got ideas or thoughts, or you're like, Johns, you were totally wrong about that to EQ stuff, feel free to go ahead. I'll probably not care that much, but feel free to have your say, because that's why we all have mouths and brains, so that we can have our own say. Let's take a listen to what we've got here. This song called, what should we call it? We'll call it Surfshark. Wait, that's a VPN. It's all good. I'll see you next time on GarageBand Weekly. Bye for now.
I've dreamed of how to surf, but I've never had the time to learn. Being here in the beach, I should probably know. I'm afraid of sharks and stuff, and I don't want to bite it in the sand. I'm just gonna stay on the shore and drink some beer, 'cause I don't know